Chapter 2 focuses on Mesopotamia, which is known as the land between rivers. It is located in the middle of the Tigris and Euphrates river valleys. By the 4th millennium BC, Sumerians built the earliest urban society, which turned into empires by 2350 BC. In 3000 BC, all Sumerian city-states were governed by kings who exercised full authority. Today we will meet the first Sumerian emperor of Mesopotamian societies.
Hi, welcome to History in Our Time. What is your name and for how long have you ruled over Mesopotamia?
Hi, my name is the Sargon of Akkad. I have reigned over my empire from 2334 to 2279 BC.
Yep.
I rose to power by conquering other city-states and controlling the trade routes with my powerful army.
Oh, that's fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit more about Sumerian society from the 24th century to 23rd century BC?
So I'm obviously at the top. I was given the power by gods themselves, and then below that you have the nobles, which they're not as great as me, but they make excellent warriors. And then you have the priests and the priestesses, which own huge plots of land, and they receive offerings from the commoners. Oh yes, speaking of commoners, they range from poor peasants to craftsmen and professionals. And then you also have slaves, which are either prisoners of war or criminals or people in debt who sell themselves to pay back what they owe. And they are usually given their freedoms after many years of good service.
So on a final note, could you tell us about the technological advancements during this time period?
Well, I'm proud to say that in 3500 BC, my people invented the first wheels for transportation. We also created ships that could navigate the Persian Gulf. Additionally, the earliest form of writing, cuneiform writing, was invented by my people. It consists of symbols that represent sounds, and it lasted for 3,000 years until it was replaced by the Greek alphabet.
How do you know it lasted for 3,000 years?
Do not interrupt me. I have not finished telling you about our magnum opus, the ziggurat. It is the massive pyramids that house altars and temples in Europe from 3200 BC.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time, strange person, but I must go now. Farewell. Oh my god.
Okay. Well, our next guest is going to be the Emperor of the Babylonian Empire, which lasted from 1792 to 1750 BC. He is known as the King of the Four Quarters of the world. Welcome. Could you tell us your name?
I am King Hammurabi of the Babylonian Empire.
It's great to have you on my show. So could you tell us a bit about your famous code of law?
Ah yes, I compiled the most extensive and complete Mesopotamian law code during my time. To punish enemies, I relied on the law of retaliation, in which offenders were punished in a way that matched their crime. Of course, if you were a noble, your sentence would be less severe than a commoner's. In any case, my code of law set common standards throughout my vast empire and provided unity.
We would love to learn more about women's place in the society during the 18th century.
Well, we did have a patriarchal society. I even allowed men to sell their wife and children into slavery. Casual socializing between married men and women outside the family was banned. And in 1500 BC, women were required to wear a veil to discourage attention from other men. Only high priestesses could manage a lot of land, and only female scribes received formal education.
Wow, that's tough. Can you tell us the causes of the collapse of your empire?
It was those wretched Hittites who destroyed my Babylonian empire in 1595 BCE. Unfortunately, they invented strong iron weapons around 1300 BCE. Our bronze weapons were no match for them.
How unfortunate. Thank you for being on my show.
You're welcome.
So our final interviewer will be a Hittite soldier from the year 1400 BC. So Hittites were influential Indo-European migrants who ruled Anatolia in 1900 BC. They built a powerful kingdom that became prosperous due to trade, Assyrians, Babylonians, and other Mesopotamians. Welcome. Can you tell us an invention that allowed you to conquer Babylonian?
Well, along our mass production of stronger iron weapons, we also invented horse-drawn iron chariots. They were much more efficient than wooden chariots, and we had an advantage over our enemies. Because we could move faster and we had more protection.
I see. Now your kingdom collapsed in 1200 BC. What happened afterwards?
European descendants began to migrate once again. In 2200 BC, groups migrated west to Greece and Italy. In 2300 BC, some traveled to Russia, Germany, and Austria. By 12,000 BC, some migrated to Western Europe, the British Isles, and the Battle region, and established trade routes throughout Europe. By 1500 BC, they migrated to south to India.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of History in Their Time. Today we are going to be covering chapter 12. And in this episode we're going to be interviewing a politician, a Christian, a Buddhist, and a Manichaeist, which is one of the recent religions that was created during the Silk Roads. And so as you can see here, this is where the dashed line was how Christianity spread. The bold line is how Buddhism was spread, and the dotted line is how Hinduism was spread.
Welcome. What is your name?
Greetings, travelers. My name is Sang Kian. I'm a messenger from Han Wuli's court.
How has your work contributed to long-distance trade?
Through my travels, I brought political and military intelligence about Western Europe, and it established trade relations between China and Bactria on 128 BC.
You know what?
Next, we're going to talk to some of the locals about diversity and the Silk Roads.
What do you mean we have to stick gun? No, we don't.
Excuse me.
Guys, back off. I got this. You want me to tell you about Buddhism? I will tell you about Buddhism. In 400 CE, we spread Buddhism through Central Asia. We gained many Chinese converts because we built a ton of monasteries there. And then we also sailed the Indian Ocean, so we got many people to convert to Buddhism in Java, Sumatra, and Malay.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Do you want to know more about Buddhism?
Okay, no, you don't. No,
I'm
she
not even
doesn't.
done
Okay.
yet. I'm not even done.
But,
Tell me about yourself.
I am Octavius, and I am from the Roman Empire. I serve for God's mission.
What is the mission?
The mission was to spread Christianity throughout the Silk Roads and establish monastic communities in the Mediterranean.
Oh, thank you for telling me about your religion and what you do.
You're welcome. I hope you convert as well.
How about you, sir? What is your religion?
I am a Manichaean. We believe in the words of the Prophet Mani, who combined the Christianity, Buddhism, and Zoroastrianism into one faith to create a universal religion.
What are your standards?
Devout Manichaeans, called the Eliks, renounce marriage, personal comforts, and or luxuries.
That is very interesting. How did you spread Manichaeism?
We built churches from Mesopotamia to the Sassanid Empire in Persia. We had large communities in Roman cities from 300 CE.
That is very interesting. Thank you for your time.
Now introducing a professor of Chinese history from Washington University.
Thank you. Alright, now let's talk about the late Han Dynasty. Around that time, there has been corruption, which was the marriage between imperial and aristocratic families. So this caused a lot of drama around China. And so what happened was Wang Mang tried to calm everything down by giving land to the peasants. But that did not happen as he didn't have a long reign. His reign only lasted about from 9 to 23 CE. And so because of all the corruption, a lot of peasants rebelled. So one of the most infamous ones was the Yellow Turban Rebellion, which is where the peasants wore yellow bandanas, which represented Chinese earth and their origins of being peasant. And all of this led to the decline or the fall of the Han Dynasty. And after the Han Dynasty fell, nomadic people from outside of China started closing in, started inhabiting, which led to the rise of the Qing Dynasty.
Thank you for being here and coming on my show.
No problem.
Now introducing a Roman historian from the University of New York.
Thank you. Hi, I'm here to talk to you about the fall of the Roman Empire. So as you can see here, it fell due to internal conflict. During the years 235 to 284 CE, you had 26 people claiming for the throne. They were known as barracks emperors because they held power briefly and then were quickly assassinated. And as you see, these internal divisions weakened the Roman Empire and they made the central government ineffective. And due to its bad size, it was very difficult to govern the Roman Empire effectively, and they couldn't enforce laws. So what Emperor Diocletian did in 284 CE is that he split the Roman Empire into two regions: the Western Roman Empire, which consists of Britain, Gaul, Italy, Spain, and Africa, and the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as Byzantine Empire, which is the wealthiest portion and has the Balkans, Anatolia, Syria, and Egypt. And so it was governed by 4 kings who were known as tetrarchs, and they were able to administer effectively. However, the Western Roman Empire didn't last for long due to Germanic invasions from Northern Europe. In the mid-5th century, the Huns, led by Attila, attacked Germanic peoples living on the borders of the Roman Empire. And as a result, you had mass migrations of Germanic peoples move into the Western Roman Empire and settle there. And it ended in 476 CE when a Germanic general named Autobasser killed the last Roman Empire, Romulus Augustulus.
Thank you for coming on to my show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, now this is the end of chapter 12, where we learned about the fall of the Roman Empire.
Hi, welcome to History in Our Time. Our first guest is the infamous King Louis XVI, the last ruler before the French Revolution.
Hello, it's nice to be here.
Tell us, what did you think about the tension that started to form while you were ruling France?
Well, I tried to text the upper class, but they wouldn't have it. So I called up my estates general, and so we decided to text the peasants.
Now, after this, the peasants seceded from the Estates General and created the National Assembly. What did you think about this?
Oh, I didn't think about this much. I just thought they were just trying to gather the money they needed to pay taxes.
Of course, that wasn't the case. They stormed the Bastille, which surrendered to them. They then proceeded to behead the guards. Afterwards, they created the Declaration of the Rights of Man. What were your thoughts at this point?
I was afraid at this point. It only got worse when they created the convention. The nerve of them to think that my wife and I were guilty of treason.
Wow, that's sad. Well, thank you for being on my show. Next, we have Napoleon Bonaparte. Hi.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming. Now, when you came into power, France was in a state of chaos. Can you talk about that?
You see, I came to power after the Jacobins and Robespierre's party. They had executed 40,000 people who they believed committed treason. Afterwards, they were found and sent to the guillotine. Then the Directory was formed, but they were weak and faced constant challenges. It was my civil duty to take control and return France to greatness.
So after you overthrew the Directory and named yourself first consul, what was the first thing that you decided to do?
The first thing I decided to do was make peace with the Roman Catholic Church. They agreed to give us all their lands, and in return I would pay the clerics' salaries. Additionally, France would recognize Roman Catholicism as the preferred religion, and I would extend rights to Protestant Christians and Jews.
So in 1804, you promulgated the Civil Code. Can you explain to me what that is?
You see, I made all men equal, and I also established a merit-based society where individuals qualified for employment and education based on their talents and not what they were born into.
So during your reign, you invaded and conquered multiple states, but when you invaded Russia, things didn't go as planned. Can you tell me what happened?
You see, in 1812, I invaded Russia because I believed that the Tsar was conspiring with the British. And we managed to capture Moscow. However, the Russians burnt down their city instead of surrendering. My magnificent army was defeated by the harsh winter. Only 30,000 of my original 600,000 men returned to France with me.
So in 1814, Russian, Prussian, Austrian, and British armies forced you to abdicate your throne. What did you do afterwards?
Well, they exiled me to an island named Elba. However, I managed to escape, and I was actually in control of France for 100 glorious days until the British army defeated me, and then they exiled me to St. Helena, where I died.
Oh, that sucks. Well, thank you for being on my show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Next, we'll be taking a look at the American Revolution. Right now, we have American Revolution leader and soon-to-be president George Washington.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
So during the 1770s, a lot of tension had built up in the colonies. Why was that?
Well, the British had begun taxing us unfairly with acts such as the Sugar Act, Stamp Act, and Tea Act. Not only that, but because of the Quarterly Act, they expected us to house their British soldiers in the colonies.
So what did you do because of this?
Well, after the Boston Massacre and other injustices, shots were finally fired in Lexington on April 9th, 1775. Later, on July 4th, 1776, we announced our independence from Britain. The war lasted for 7 years, and in the beginning, it looked as if we were going to lose the battle. But after the Battle of Saratoga, we were finally able to win against the British.
So what happened after the war?
Well, I was elected president, and together with my people, we built a prosperous new nation.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for being on my show.
Hello, and today we're going to interview Toussaint Louverture, the leader of the Saint Domingue slave revolt against the French. Hello, and welcome to History in Their Time.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Could you tell me what made you an effective leader of the slave revolt of Saint Domingue?
Yeah, well, you see, by 1793, I had organized a strong army of 20,000 men that were controlling the whole island. Additionally, I was able to play British, French, and Spanish soldiers against each other. Well, I created a new constitution that granted everyone equality and citizenship. I didn't declare independence from France because I wasn't looking to fight Napoleon and his army. However, Napoleon sent 40,000 troops to Saint Domingue and arrested me.
That's horrible. Did you lose the war against the French?
Yellow fever ravaged the French army, and my troops were able to drive the rest of them out of the island. In 1803, we declared independence from France, and we renamed Haiti Land of the Mountains.
Thank you, and thank you for elaborating on the Haitian rebellion.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Now we'll interview a European Parliament member, William Wilberforce. Hello, welcome to my show.
Hello, it's nice to be here.
Could you tell us about how you made slavery illegal in Britain?
Of course. So after the Haitian Revolution, I feared that continued use of slave labor would lead to more violent slave revolts or revolutions. So in 1807, I passed a bill to end the slave trade.
What were the effects of that act?
Well, it influenced the US, France, Netherlands, and Spain to end the slave trade as well. Additionally, the British Army patrolled the west coast of Africa to enforce the ban.
Were you also able to end slavery along with the slave trade?
Yeah, yes, of course. In 1833, Parliament abolished slavery throughout the British Empire.
Well, that's very interesting. Thank you for all this information, and thank you for being on my show.
Problem.
Next, we have American feminist Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Hello.
Hi.
Can you tell me about the Seneca Fall Convention?
Yes, I organized it in 1848 in New York. It was a meeting for feminists, and we created 12 resolutions demanding equal rights to men.
What kind of rights did you guys demand for?
We demanded for women's right to vote, to attend school, to enter professional occupations, and to participate in government.
Did you achieve your goals?
At the moment, we haven't been able to achieve our goals. We were able to get more women to join activist movements and receive formal education, but during the 19th century, we still can't vote or enter professional jobs.
I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope in the future everything gets better. Thank you for being on my show.
Thank you for having me.
Hello and welcome to History in Their Time. Today's episode we're going to be talking about World War II. It lasted from 1939 to 1945. The two parties involved were the Axis powers, which were Germany, Japan, and Italy, against the Allies party, which were the US, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union. We will talk more about who was involved and what happened by interviewing a couple people who were there. We're going to be interviewing Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1940 to 1945. Also, we're going to be interviewing Franklin D. Roosevelt, also known as FDR, the President of the United States from 1933 until his death in 1945. We have a Holocaust survivor and a comfort moment survivor, and Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union from the mid-1920s until his death in 1953. And first up, we have a comfort woman survivor. Hello and welcome to my show. Glad that you're here.
I'm glad to be here as well.
Well, what we would like to know is, what is a comfort woman?
To answer that, I have to tell you how it came to be. The Japanese armies took 300,000 women with great force to serve in the military brothels. Many of us had to serve between 20 to 30 men each day.
What happened to many of the comfort women?
Many of us were massacred, and most of us who were survivors felt deep shame.
Why is that, and did you feel deep shame?
So many were deeply ashamed of what happened. Some blamed themselves. I felt that way for some time, but I did what I had to do in order to survive, and then I realized that it was the Japanese soldiers and the army who were to blame.
That's true. So while you were a comfort woman, did the Japanese soldiers or army talk about what was going on during the war?
I heard that the U.S. dropped a bomb on Hiroshima and that the Soviet Union declared war on Japan. Also, the Japanese attacked the U.S. on Pearl Harbor.
Wow, I'm sorry for what you have been through. Thank you for letting us, giving us the information, being on our show.
No problem.
Up next, we have Joseph Stalin. Hello, and welcome to History in Their Time. Thank you for being here.
I'm thankful to be here.
So, when did you enter World War II?
Well, the Soviet Union entered World War II in June 1941 on the side of the Allies when Germany invaded the Soviet Union.
And tell me about the Nazi-Soviet Pact of 1939, and when did Hitler break it?
I made a war pact with Germany to become allies during the war, and we would split Eastern European nations among us. However, Hitler had other plans. He was secretly planning the destruction of the Soviet Union. So what he did is he secretly invaded Russia with the largest German army in history. Luckily, my troops and Russian citizens prevailed.
Well, that's unfortunate. Who won the war and how?
The Allies won. Hitler killed himself on April 30, 1945, so the Axis powers had no leader and they disintegrated. And 2 weeks afterwards, the Allies accepted Germany's surrender and the war was finally over.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here on my show. And
Thank you for having me.
today we have two leaders of the alliance of the Soviet Union, Britain, and the U.S. First, we'll be interviewing President D. Roosevelt. Hello and welcome to my show.
It's nice to be here.
Mr. Roosevelt, what did you discuss in the wartime conference in Yalta?
Well, Stalin and I made an agreement to enter the war against Japan.
What else did you guys discuss?
We also agreed that war criminals will be tried before an international court. Additionally, we talked on how to deal with the liberated countries in Eastern Europe.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Roosevelt. Next, we have the Prime Minister of Britain, Winston Churchill. Hello, Mr. Churchill.
Good morning.
I must ask, what did you discuss during the Potsdam Conference in Berlin?
What we discussed was the Allied control of Germany and the occupation of Austria and the demarcation of Poland's borders.
How did the Marshall Plan affect Europe?
The Marshall Plan was proposed by U.S. Secretary of State George Marshall. Its goal was to rebuild European economies through capitalism to stop the spread of communism. It provided $13 billion to Western European countries.
Well, thank you for being here and providing this information that was much needed.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Our last guest we're interviewing today is a Holocaust survivor. Hello, welcome to my show.
Shalom.
Thank you for being here. Can we start off by asking, what happened to the Jews, Gypsies, and the non-Jews?
So what happened was the Nazis dispatched 3,000 troops who were the SS Einsatzgruppen, and they would kill entire populations of Gypsies, Jews, and Slavic people. And 1.4 million Jews perished from these mass shootings by the end of 1941.
Wow, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Can you explain to me what happened during the final solution?
So Jews from Europe were packed into suffocating trains, and deported into concentration camps in Poland. Many Jews perished in these camps through gassing, injections, grenades, and machine guns.
That's unbelievable. What were the camp's names?
Well, the most well-known camp in my community, and everyone else knew was Auschwitz, which everyone feared of.
Wow, that's horrifying. You're very strong. And I couldn't imagine going through something like that myself. That's so amazing that you survived the Holocaust.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we have for today. This is our last interview. Thank you for watching.